business conduct that is human rights compliant. But we knew that already. Amnesty then go on to say companies depending on public contracts will feel more confident that their global impacts on human rights and the environment will be irrelevant to their success in tendering processes. I see this as a clear incitement to such companies to lessen their commitments to human rights and the environment, as they will no longer need them to gain public contracts. Companies that respect human rights face being undercut by those knowingly breach international standards with little fear of consequences. What a horrible race to the bottom, Mr. Deputy Speaker. But there's a niggling problem here for the government regarding human rights. There's a global consensus on the human rights standards applicable to companies. The United Nations Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights were unanimously endorsed by the UN Human Rights Council, the European Union, the Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development, and the International Standards Organisation. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the UK was the first country to develop a national action plan to implement these guiding principles, and now we appear to be the first country to renege on these commitments. The UK is in danger of being a rogue state in this field, going against the tide of international opinion, which considers that public bodies should use procurement and investment policies to incentivise business to be ethical and human rights compliant. And it's in public interest, I would argue, that this is so. Consider an example from Amnesty where an NHS body might choose to avoid sourcing medical equipment from certain suppliers, say Malaysia, Thailand, Pakistan or Mexico, saying that they've been implicated in modern slavery. Those overseas supply companies could take legal action under this new act on grounds that decision makers were influenced by political or moral disapproval of foreign state conduct. And the courts would then have to determine whether the exemption in the bill for labour-related misconduct applied in that particular case. Imagine also if a public body in Scotland decided to stop sourcing beef from a Brazilian meat distribution company whose products have been linked to deforestation of the Amazon. If the proposed law, for example, had been in place during the previous Brazil presidency, at a time when exploitation of the Amazon was being actively encouraged, the Brazilian government or a company whose products were being excluded could have challenged the decision in the High Court on the grounds that it was influenced by political or moral disapproval of foreign state conduct. Since it's unclear if the environmental misconduct exemption referred to in Part 2 of the Bill's schedule would prevail, the risk attached would likely have deterred any public body from taking such a decision on environmental grounds. They would have been compelled to be complicit in deforestation. Liberty and other groups, Mr. Deputy Speaker, have pointed out that the bill gives the enforcement authority the power to issue a notice to a public authority requesting to assess whether there has or may be a breach of the ban or the prohibition on making statements. And the bill gives the enforcement authority the power to impose a compliance notice where they consider a person is likely to contravene the ban. Not has contravened, but is likely to contravene. Now, we're in the realms of Orwell's Thought Police or Philip K. Dick's Minority Report, with precogs catching criminals before they've even committed the crime. The normal police come for you when you commit an act which is criminal, but it's the thought police who are different. They act if you intend to act in some particular way. Under the bill, the authorities don't need to demonstrate any proof of intent.
If it freezes again, I'll change computers. I'll go on to the desktop.
Clause 4 of this bill would prohibit public
because I've still got another laptop and I've still got a desktop yet. In fact, I've got two desktops.
From publishing public statements indicating that they intend to act in a way that would contravene the ban, or that they would, in theory, intend to act that way if not for the ban.
And if it keeps freezing, I'll just change my Wi-Fi.
Our local council would have boycotted these goods from the state-owned enterprise due to the state's conduct in relation to this territory, but the law does not permit this.
What you guys don't know is I'm also a SIM card provider.
To say, as someone who subscribes to socialist theory, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I say we must remove clause 4. And I look forward to, and I noticed that there was an amendment on that on the order paper. Liberty have pointed out, just one occasion there, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I want to make that clear. Liberty have pointed out, in other jurisdictions.
You get me 1,000 people in there, and I'll take subscribe off
Georges in Texas.
And I'll also
She declined to sign an agreement promising not to boycott Israel on the basis of a
take
similar anti-boycott.
the time limit off. So you want smart chat, you want instant chat, then you have to earn it.
The anti-boycott legislation, once enacted, is liable to be extended to a plethora of issues.
Slow mode's on to stop the spammers or the Bible bashers.
Following the earlier Scottish example, let us look more broadly at the consequences of this bill to Scotland and the other UK devolved governments. COP26 was held in Glasgow. We know that what happened there there's now watering down to the government's climate commitments. But Scotland remains committed to combating climate change. In fact, the governments of Scotland, Northern Ireland and Wales are all attempting to use the leverage of public procurement to incentivise companies to behave sustainably with regards to human rights, fairness, labour rights and the environment. Those policies will clearly be undermined by this bill, despite investment and procurement being devolved functions to all three of those parliaments. I'll give way to one.
Give way, please.
This government, which claims to be very much in favour of devolution, I've heard the right honourable gentleman on the front bench several times saying that the Conservatives are in favour of devolution. Should they not be required to seek consent from the government in Scotland, Wales and in Northern Ireland before they proceed?
The honourable friend is correct. They should receive. I suspect they will not receive it from either the Scottish Parliament or indeed the Welsh Senate for many, many reasons. But there is clearly an impact, as my honourable friend said, to devolution. But not all parties in that Parliament. I'll let you guess which party is the least protective of Scotland's interests. The legislative powers which Scotland currently has are guarded jealously, and there is a strong demand for many, possibly all, of reserve powers to be transferred to Scottish control. This is not surprising, Mr Deputy Speaker. Mr Deputy Speaker, I and others will continue to explore the deficiencies of this bill again today, pointing out its many contradictions, but I'll give way first to him.
I thank him for giving way and compliment him on his excellent speech. He's given very good reasons, democratic, social and moral reasons why this bill is indeed...
Why is Corbyn on the back bench now?
...process going forward with the Secretary of State to now withdraw the bill altogether.
Well, I think that would be very helpful indeed, and he is right. What we're all trying to do, those of us who've tabled amendments, is we're trying to clean up a dog's breakfast.
It's Corbyn being lobbed out of the Labour Party.
Frankly, we're all trying to make this bill a little bit better, but the ultimate solution would be
is he sitting as an independent now? Oh, that's funny.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, whilst we point out
I didn't see what it said when it came on the screen. I saw his name, but I didn't look at the party.
Seeking to divide the House on Amendment 28, and I look forward to hearing other members pursuing their amendments.
Someone needs to talk, because I don't think you want to listen to me talking all the time. And you can't for 10 minutes.
Speaker, I would like to speak against all the amendments and new clauses tabled today and in support of the bill as it is drafted. Mr Deputy Speaker, we need this bill, and I thank the government for including it in the Conservative manifesto and for taking it forward. And I urge the whole House to back the bill and reject the amendments. This is a time, of all times, this is a time to stand with the Jewish community, following what was the worst attack on Jewish people since the Holocaust. BDS has...
When will these people wake up and understand it wasn't an attack on Jewish people, it was an attack on the world? Most of these people that have been kidnapped are foreign citizens.
Campaigns fall within the international IRA definition of anti-Semitism. The French Supreme Court...
Oh, we're not allowed to talk. We're not allowed to talk bad about Israel now. If we talk bad, it's anti-Semitism or whatever they call it, and we will be arrested as a hate crime. So in other words, we're now, by law, being forced to support Israel. We have to support Israel now or we go to jail.
At a time like this, when Jewish people are in fear for their friends and relatives in Israel,
if you wave a Palestinian flag in the UK now, as of today, it's illegal. It's a criminal offence to wave a Palestinian flag in the UK now, and it's also a criminal offence to talk bad about Israel. Yeah, good luck with that one. I don't think there's 67 million prison cells in the UK.
The BDS is absolutely focused on division, not on unity. The BDS movement deplores coexistence and peace-building initiatives. For example, condemning cooperation between Israeli and Palestinian universities. The BDS movement's
But she's using her words.
Right now, in the voting lobbies this evening, we are in a situation where the question to be asked...
Go and have a drink in the bar, dear.
I want to make clear that I strongly support the right of Israel to defend its land and defend its citizens from terrorist attack. Of course, we all worry about the plight of innocent Gazans put in harm's way by Hamas, who brutalizes them and
They haven't been put in harm's way by Hamas. They were Hamas supporters and workers. They knew exactly what's going on. They've had 56 years of this. So they know. Well, Hamas has been in power for what, 17 years? So they know exactly what's going on.
And will continue to make the greatest efforts possible to prevent civilian loss of life. Israel is one of the most democratic countries in the world, and it respects the rule of law. And I'm certain that it's democratic and legal.
Israel is one of the most democratic countries in the world, and they observe the rule of law. Tell that to the 120 kids that are in incubators fighting for their lives right now.
Not conducting their own trade and foreign policy. We need campaigns which promote peaceful progress towards a two-state solution, not bitterness and exclusion. We need to take all possible action against the anti-Semitism, which we have seen increase so shockingly in recent days. Mr. Deputy Speaker, we need this bill.
Have we finished? I beg your pardon. Opposition front bench, Angela Raymond.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. And let me start by saying this after following the honourable member for Chipping Barnet. When things are so delicate, we all have a responsibility to take additional care in the language we use and to operate on the basis of facts alone. Those were the words of the Prime Minister in his statement to this House on Monday. He continued by saying that now is not the time for hyperbole and simplistic solutions. He was absolutely right, Mr. Deputy Speaker, about the importance of tone in today's debate, as when we discuss the 7th of October attack and events in the Middle East. What we say in this chamber...
Are they all stoned today?
...really matters.
Have they all been on drugs?
Out
none of them can speak.
And it goes without saying that the disgusting rise in anti-Semitism and Islamophobia since the attack on the...
Islamophobia as well.
...makes that point more profound.
So people are attacking Islam and they're attacking Jews. Islamics, whatever.
Of a humanitarian emergency in the Middle East.
She needs a haircut.
All week to force this legislation onto the parliamentary timetable. A bill that fails the Prime Minister's own test of avoiding simplistic solutions. So, Mr. Deputy Speaker, there can be no doubt that Labour is opposed to a policy
for the Labour Party. I sent her a message once. She totally ignored me.
She says with some force at the dispatch box that Labour are clear that they are opposed to singling out Israel through BDS measures. Yet, where Labour are in government in the UK, in Wales, the Welsh Labour government sought to bring forward a procurement note that singled out Israel and the
I tell you what, why don't we just put a wall, put the wall back up between England and Scotland, then put another wall up between Wales and England, and then we'll put another wall up, stopping anyone coming from Northern Ireland. We'll put a wall completely round Northern Ireland again, and we'll go back to the 1970s when the wall was around Northern Ireland.
When I shadowed the Cabinet Office, that would prevent councils singling out Israel or any other country. But the government has consistently opposed that amendment. And today we are presented with a bill that will not address the problem it rightly seeks to solve. As it stands, this bill is needlessly broad and sweeping draconian powers and far-reaching effects. It's poorly drafted legislation and risks creating fresh legal disputes and will only serve as new flashpoints for community tension.
Pardon me.
We remain far from convinced that the protected legal battles over the BDS would serve or protect Jewish communities in the UK. These are issues that are right honourable.
I'm pretty sure these people only take jobs as MPs because no one else will employ them.
The member for Nottingham North and Caerphilly outlined during the committee stage. So today, it's the fourth time that we have presented the government with a chance to change course and choose a more constructive way forward. Yet the bill has been brought back today nearly totally unamended. The only change is the explanatory notes. It is all too clear to that the Secretary of State has not listened. But Mr. Deputy Speaker, there is a way forward. It is not, in our view, wrong for public bodies to take ethical investment and procurement decisions. There is a difference between applying consistency.
The best part is all these speeches that they're reading now, they've not written these. Civil servants have written these. So it don't matter who's in power, it will be the exact same brief that they have to read. But people don't understand that. Governments do not run countries. The population and the civil servants do. Hi, whoever's just come in. You got 2 minutes before you can type.
Based on principles that are applied equally to all countries, rather than singling out individual nations. Such a statement of ethical policy would ensure that consistency in how public bodies decide on these matters, and it would be a subject to guidance issued by elected ministers and laid before this House. Any inconsistent application would be prohibited. Under Labour's proposals, if a public body were to act only against a particular state, for instance, the world's only Jewish state, and fail to comply a consistent approach to human rights everywhere, such actions would be unlawful. We were disappointed, Mr. Deputy Speaker. The government chose not to support our amendment at previous stages. But I repeat today to the Minister, our offer to the government, indeed the whole House, to work together and speak with one voice on this most serious of issues by accepting this amendment. Moving on, Mr. Deputy Speaker, there are 4 more concerning areas within this bill which I wish to briefly raise with the Secretary of State today. First, on foreign policy. We have serious reservations about how this bill will effectively rewrite UK foreign policy by explicitly equating Israel with the occupied Palestinian territories and the Golan Heights. This is an unprecedented step that, to my knowledge, has never been taken in British statute before and is unique in any British legislation. An essential cornerstone of British policy supported across this House and indeed at the UN is support for a 2-state solution as a viable long-term solution to give Israelis and Palestinians the recognition and security that they deserve. Not only does the wording of this bill call into question the long-standing position of the UK in supporting a two-state solution, it runs counter to the UN resolutions. And to add to this, such a move would also go against the very aim of this bill by singling out Israel in such an exceptional manner, failing to treat it like any other country or nation. Second, and related, the Secretary of State claims that the bill is non-country specific and of general application. But the only states and territories named on the face of the bill are Israel and the occupied Palestinian territories and the Golan Heights. Quite apart from singling out Israel, the fact is the bill applies as much to China, Myanmar and North Korea as it does to Israel. This could, for example, have significant effects on the ability of communities to support the Uyghur minorities in China who are victims of grave human rights abuses.
I thank my right honourable friend for giving way. She knows that I myself was a former local authority leader in Trafford, and I am incredibly proud that as the leader of Trafford Council, my Labour administration took steps to cease procurement linked to the Xinjiang region because of the oppression and suppression of Uyghur Muslims. Am I correct to interpret this bill in the way that it seems to suggest that I was incorrect to do that my Labour administration were incorrect to do that, and that others up and down the country who speak up for human rights and against this sort of behaviour are in the wrong?
I think you absolutely make a very important point, and that's why across the House we're trying to gain consensus by these amendments, because it's important that people are able to raise concerns, but raise them appropriately in the best way. And I think this bill really doesn't do that. And even the Foreign Secretary's Office warned Number 10 about the impact of this bill on our foreign commitments. For this reason, we welcome Amendment 7 in the name of the Right Honourable Member for North West Hampshire, that I also note has the support across the House from the Liberal Democrat and SNP benches too, and which we think will go some way to addressing the problem. Thirdly, Mr Deputy Speaker, I want to re-emphasise the concerns raised by members from all major parties about Clause 4 of this bill, the so-called gagging clause. While I acknowledge the changes made to the explanatory notes in the area,
just put a lot of keywords in so people can find the room.
For our democracy, and I urge the Minister to think again. I and my right honourable friends have tabled Amendment 16, which would address this issue in relation to elected bodies.
I am my right honourable friend. She hasn't got any friends.
So many other amendments to the clause, including from his own benches and the SNP benches.
Hold on, let me show you who's talking.
Cannot be underestimated.